Why would a radical Salafi Muslim become a follower of Jesus?
Most of the people rejected me in Egypt, the people I used to know, I mean.
Our guest today is Tomas Samuel, a new friend of mine who's written a book just coming out about his journey, so to speak, that we're going to get into today, called It's Your Time to Follow Me.
People are full of hatred. I received 359 direct death threats. It cost me a lot. However,
Tomas, such a treat to talk with you again. Thanks for coming on the show and your courage and willingness to share your story.
Thank you, Sam. I'm very honored to be with you today. It's a blessing, and I'm very happy to be with your audience, and I pray that God will use it for His glory.
Well, let's start in our conversation where you start in the book. Is your childhood growing up in Egypt? What was your family like? What are some of your earliest memories?
Actually, this is a fantastic, special story in my opinion, because my family was a radical, or still actually is radical Muslims, because they are still radical Muslims, and they grow me up in Egypt in the idea of or in the path of Salafism, because we believe that Salafism is a path. And for people who may not understand the word Salafi, Salafi are the group of people who believe in Quran, the book of Muslims, and Sunnah, the words of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, with the perspective of the ancestors of the nation, of the Islamic nation. In another way, we say Al-Quran wa Sunnah bimanhaj salaf al-ummah, the Quran and Sunnah with the perspective or the world view of Muhammad's companions, and with the most radical, foundational, fundamental perspective. It's very important, Shan, to say that it's fundamental, not extremist. This is very important point people don't understand sometimes. A big difference between saying extreme. Extreme is something out of the line, right? When you say this is extreme, like there is a middle point, there is a path, and you go extreme out of the path. No, we are not the extreme. We are the fundamentalists. We are the core. We are the followers of Quran and Sunnah. So, in my opinion, Salafism is the radical, foundational, fundamental Islam in the Muslim world. So they grow me up. They grow me up on these teachings. They grow me up with these values. I started to memorize the Quran since I was young. I remember well, my mom used to tell me this very important words for me because it meant a lot to me. My mom used to look at me after her prayer or when she's about to pray, and she says, "May I see you, a leader of Islam, coming back with victory, or a dead body coming back as a martyrdom." Imagine my mom is saying that. She wants to see that I am giving my life to God, to witness for Islam, because this is the highest moral we can achieve in Islam, to give your life to God, to be a witness for Him by being a martyr, or for the Islamic Khilafah or nation or Ummah. And my mom used to teach me how to pray, since I was young, and my dad as well, but my mom was the focus because she's very religious. My mom is very religious person. And she, and my uncle as well, my uncle is Imam. So, was the Imam of the mosque. And they grow me up with the idea that I should become the next Imam and the next leader this is the coming generation. And so I started to memorize the Quran since I was, I think, 6 or 7, till 9 years old. I was start to be teaching and learning how to teach and how to lead the prayer. I was learning how to run a circle study, We have circle studies so much in the mosque still. When I was just 13, I was growing so fast in this path to be the coming leader. So this is what I remember the most, that my dream was to give my life to God, to do whatever it takes to be the coming leader who will give his life and die for Islam.
So from your earliest memories, to serve God in some capacity was to sacrifice your life in some form of jihad. Your mom instilled that in you. You desired that, sought that, thought about that, prayed about that. Was that really your greatest desire growing up? Is that fair to say?
Yes, it was my greatest desire. Nothing better than this. And I have never seen something higher than dying for God.
Wow. Now, do you have brothers and sisters? Where would you fit within that? Tell me a little bit more about your family insofar as you're comfortable sharing.
I grew up with mom and two brothers who are younger, much younger than me. So they didn't attend these early days, what I talked about, because I'm older with 13 years and 11 years than my brother. So I'm the older among them. I grew up with two aunts. So I had three moms at home, two aunts and one mom. And I had my dad and uncle. We lived in what we call in Egypt a family house. You know, it's not only a small family, the big family, all living together.
Okay, so presumably your mom wasn't the first Muslim in your lineage. How far back does your family go in the Islamic tradition?
Well, for the Islamic tradition, we grow up, that was very important point, that we grow up with the idea that we are from the Prophet house, because I came from Aqil ibn Abi Talib. It's Aqil, the brother of Ali, the fourth Khalifa of Islam and the cousin of Muhammad. So I used to, this is something that has been planted in our hearts since we were young, like you are from the Prophet house. And this is, they used to tell us two things. This is an honor and a duty. It's an honor because God chose you to be from the Prophet house, but it's a duty that you have to be a role model for all Muslims. So this is so unique.
Wow, that was really built into you in different ways. Now, did you have Christians in your life? Did you have Jews in your life? What were some of those relationships like? And how did your Salafi worldview inform them?
Actually, we don't have Jews in our life because in Egypt, there are very few number of Jews living and they are always not saying that they are Jews. So in our area, we have no Jews. It's very rare to find Jews in Egypt.
Okay.
So mostly we have Christians, and I used to have Christian neighbors, and we used to have them in our family building, like in the building we used to live. We used to have some Christian neighbors, and I remember that they were always afraid of me because I was so strict Muslim. So I was always looking at them like, you are not one of us, you know.
Okay.
I remember one day, one of the very initial stories in my life. We rented a house for a Christian, so he came to pay the rent to our family. So I have just watched a movie on TV as a kid, you know. So I watched Salahuddin movie, The Warrior of Islam. So it's not a good movie for kids, by the way, but I watched it. This is very, very plus 18. So it's full of blood and killing and so on. Anyway, but the thing is, when he came, Salahuddin was fighting with the Christians, with the Crusades. So he was saying, once he came, I told him, can I ask you a question? Because they were still inside, everyone. So I told him, can I ask you a question? He said, yes. I said, why you hate us? He said, what? I don't hate you. Why should I hate you?
Mm.
I said, yeah, you Christians hate all of the Muslims. You hate us and you want us to be like you. And this is what the Quran is saying. And you wanted to kill Salah ad-Din. So he said, my son, this is a movie. We love you. We don't want to do anything.
Mm.
And my mom came out and she said, no, he's a kid. He doesn't know what he's saying. But then after he left, she looked at me and she said, yeah, they hate us. They don't
Wow.
want us, and they want us to be like them. And this is what the Quran is saying, that Jews and Christians will never accept you until you are one of them. So I grow up with hatred actually to Christians and Jews the most, because I believe that they want to turn all of us to Christian and Jews, and they are just tricking us actually.
Mm. How common is this belief within Egypt about Christians and Jews, whether you think it's Salafi or from another sect of Islam, or even in other Muslim countries throughout the world? Were you kind of a minority, the elite, or is this a little bit more of a common viewpoint among Muslim nations today?
No, I think it's a common view, because if you look around, you will see how much there is a hate of anti-Semitism, for example, and people they have this hatred since the young age. I remember my teacher in school, and it was the Christians are a minority as most of the time, and it was a Muslim school. And once the Christians go out in the religion lecture, they go out to attend outside another lecture for
Oh.
Christians. The teacher used to look at us and said, "You know what? These Christians don't clean themselves here. You know, they are dirty. They are not unclean people."
Mm.
So I think most of the Muslims will have this perspective. That's why it's very popular. Some stuff is very popular in Egypt. Like, for example, Christians are unclean. Christians are unfaithful. They kiss each other in the church on the night of the Christmas when they turn off the lights, because in the Coptic church they turn off the light for a moment to say that the new light, Jesus Christ, has come to the world. So they say no, they turn off the light so they can kiss each other. And we grow up with these ideas, you know.
Interesting.
And imagine, Chan, how we see people when you have this in your back mind, how you see your friends, how you relate to your neighbors and to your people, to the people, Christian and others around you. This is so mean, in a very mean way.
So there's two historical events that I think really help unpack your worldview. One was in the early 2000s, the death of a Hamas leader. What happened and how did that affect you? How old were you at that point, by the way, if you recall?
I think I was a teenager in that time, and I remember that I was in my early teenager years, and I remember that we were sitting, and suddenly we heard cries, and everyone was. My aunt was like kind of crying out, and it was the announcement of the death of Ahmed Yassin, the leader of Hamas, and that he was shot with a rocket. And this was a funeral in our house. My aunt cry and my mom was crying, and they were just insulting Jews, and they saying that and cursing them, all the curses you can imagine that should be poured on the Jews, and how awful they are, and how they killed a very unique, important leader for us. And we used to have songs, Islamic songs, not the normal songs, Islamic songs about that they killed the paralyzed man because he was scary for them, and they could not do anything except killing him. And this was important for me because I felt like I will be the coming leader. I will not stay silent. I am a revolutionary guy by nature. I'm a little bit in that character, and I don't like to stay silent. It's not me. I should do something about it, you know. So This is what I decided on that day, that I will be the coming leader, and I will be the coming guy who will give his life to die for God.
You know, it's interesting that a lot of people think if we can kill the leader in Hamas or some radical Islamic sect, this will scare people away. But it had the opposite effect on you and said, I want to be a part of this and I want to die for the cause. That's a very, very interesting response. Now, you also talk about 9/11 and what you remember during that and how it affected you. So how old were you and how did that affect you?
Still, I was older, and actually, I remember very well because I was in my room. I remember this very well. I was in my room and I heard the word Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You know, this very famous screaming that Muslims do when they when they do anything positive or big. Allahu Akbar. And it was my whole family was watching TV, and they watched that they destroyed the towers. And they were so proud. At last, they destroyed their economy. They destroyed the Americans. It was like victory for them. It was exactly like victory. And they were just bowing down for God with thanks to the Lord that He helped them, to Allah, that He helped them to destroy the nations. And He is redeeming the Islamic Ummah. It's the dream of Khilafah, brother. That's the problem. It's the dream of Khilafah. They don't even see Egypt as a country. They see Egypt as just a state of the Islamic states, because the Islamic State is just some countries together. That's the Islamic history. So they don't believe in Egypt as a country. They don't believe in Iraq as a country. They don't believe in Syria as a country. But they are all part from Islamic State that should come back one day. If we want that or not, it will come back. This is how they think.
Now, you describe shifting from wanting, this created a desire to die as a martyr, but it didn't work out for you. What happened that prevented you from doing so? And then what was the shift that came after that?
The biggest problem happened when 2003, America attacked Iraq in 2002, 2003, around that time. And they were attacking for us the best and one of the most actually important places after Palestine and Mecca and Medina. It's Iraq. It's the state, because it used to be the capital of the Islamic Khilafah for a long time. So for us, it was like not one more country, not one more. We are fed up with that. It's enough, not more. So for me, I grew up with this Islamic songs about jihad all the time, about jihad in Kosovo, in Shishan, in Bosnia, in the Balkan area, in this what we grow up with. In the time that people was hiding, sorry to say, was hiding porno CDs in their teenage time to watch. We were hiding, me and my group, we were hiding jihadi CDs to watch jihadi people doing the fights. Really, we were just enjoying that, and we watched them in the fight and how they die, and we imagine that they die smiling for God. And so when they did that, I decided that this is enough. I want to go to jihad, and for this time, I'm not just dreaming or not just a wish. It's serious. So I went upstairs to one of our neighbors who was connected so much to the jihadi in Egypt, and we know him personally. So I asked him. I told him, please, I want to go to jihad. It's enough. He looked at me with very open eyes and he said, at last, I was waiting for this moment. I felt like, oh my God, it's time for me to die for God.
Wow.
Because actually, I was scared. I will tell you something that I have never shared before.
Hmm.
I was scared, Jen. I was very scared. You know what I'm scared of? I'm scared of God. Because God will, everyone will pass by hell, according to the Islamic religion. Everyone will pass by it. Even if you will not enter it, you will pass by it. This is what the Quran is saying. وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا. Every one of you has to pass by it. كَانَ عَلَى رَبِّكَ وَعْدًا مَقْضِيًّا. This was on your God a decision. It's a must. Let's say it's a must to pass by. So I was afraid to pass by hell. I was afraid. I wanted to avoid this with my life. I wanted really to avoid this. I want to go to paradise. I was so scared of hell. And if the passport to pass by, to avoid hell and go to paradise is to die for God, good and well, this is easy. Let me die for him. And by the way, many of the Salafi people are just scared. But people don't know that. They are just scared. Very scared because God is very scary in Islam. Very scary. How many verses that are very strong and very harsh and very scary that talks make you frightened all the time. It's very hard. So after I told him that, told me, okay, just wait for a phone call. And I was preparing myself, preparing my bag, hiding it under my bed. You know, like I'm going to jihad. That's end of story. Until I received the phone call, I was so glad seeing his number on the phone, over the phone. But I received the bad news. He said, no, you will not go because they caught the people. You cannot go. For me, this was kind of an electric shock coming from heavens on my head. It was like, I don't know, I don't have the words to describe how painful, how awful I felt, and how much I felt rejected by God. Someone would say, yeah, but this is not a reason to be rejected by God. You know, this is, you wanted to go to jihad and didn't work. Yeah, but don't you know that Muslim jihadi are called by name to die for God? The people who die for God are called by name in Islam. The people who die for God are very special in Islam. So why I'm not special? What I did that did not include me with the special people. I used to pray every day a lot, more than the main 5 prayers. I prayed all the Sunnah prayers, all the night prayers. I memorized the Quran. I do everything possible to be a good Muslim. And leading the prayer, I started after that to lead the prayer in the mosque and to be teaching and helping Muslims and doing everything possible. So why on earth I'm not chosen? This for me was a big question mark. I started to retreat a little bit from being with groups and with people. I was so frustrated, so I was not trying to be involved with many people. I just go to pray and come back. After a while, I started even to disappear a little bit from the mosque, which is so forbidden for us as Salafi people. We should pray in the mosque. Men should pray in the mosque. But I was so sick in my soul, I can say that. And one of my leaders started to miss me. So he started to say, like, where is the guy? And he asked it, and he knew about that I was going to jihad and it didn't work. So he called me and he asked it to meet me. And his first question, why you are angry? Why you are sad? I told him, why? Because I was not accepted. God didn't let me die for him. And then this man said a prophecy. I believe it's today that it was a prophecy, like Balaam. He said, maybe God wants you to live. I said, what do you mean? He said, a guy like you should not die a guy like you, I saw him talking, I saw him preaching, I saw him praying. You should be the guy who is reaching out for his brothers in Islam. Reach out for people and bring them to become Muslims, to become radical Muslims, to become Salafi Muslims. And this is your goal. This is your point of going and starting up. And when you speak, many will die, because you will bring to Islam jihadi people, you will bring to Islam preachers, you will bring to Islam students, you will bring to Salafism a lot of manpower. I like the idea. It's like, oh my God, that's a very good idea. So I decided that I will be the da'iyah, da'wah, we call it da'iyah. So the guy who is spreading out or reaching out for Muslims. So I was, oh my God, like a fire in a dry grass.
Hey, Thomas, let me jump in here for a second, because I want to ask you some questions about this shift in your life. But I just want to point out to people, when you said you were going to share something you hadn't shared before, and this is at the moment you thought you were going to get called for jihad, I literally thought you were going to say, Sean, I got to confess, I was afraid to die. I was afraid. I thought that's what you were going to say, because in American Western culture, there is far more fear of death than there is fear of God. People live their lives afraid of death and what that might mean, more than they have a palpable fear of God. For you and your community and your culture you grew up in, fear with God was palpable. It was real. It was visceral. You felt it far more than fear of death. So I don't want people to miss how radical of an experience that was for you. So this fellow says, maybe you're not supposed to die for, Allah. You're supposed to live for him. In the book, you start walking through ways you would kind of live for him and even evangelize Christians, so to speak. So interesting to me. Pick up the story where you left off and what that looks like in your life at this stage.
I started to be like really reaching out, dynamo who works 24/7 to reach out for Muslims, to bring them to Islam. I became so popular in doing that. Many people started to know me and many people started to come. Actually, I was successful in doing this job. Many people became radical Muslims, became Salafi, or at least started to take care of their faith, and they became like to repent in the Muslim understanding also, and to become real Muslims. Because for us, most of the people are not real Muslims. They are, because, for example, when you don't pray the 5 prayers, you are not a real Muslim. Because what's your excuse? So for me, they started to be a real Muslim. But the problem that the more I do that, the more I succeed in doing that, I felt that there is something missing. There is something that is not equal to jihad, because I was dreaming of jihad. And I used to think that, for example, Muslims will go to heaven anyway, because actually this is a big problem in Islam. They think that there is a hadith that says, if you say no God except Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, you will go to heaven even if you steal and you commit adultery. You will go to heaven. And this means that you may go to hell for purification, but then you will go to heaven at the end. You will not remain in hell for eternity. That's for sure as a Muslim. So accordingly, I started to feel like I'm calling people. It's good to call people to be radical Muslims, but I want to do something more strong than that. And here I started to think of calling Christians to Islam.
Interesting.
And this was really fun, because I tried to play it safe in the beginning, so I decided to do that online. So in 3 months, I got 3 women from Islam from Christianity to Islam. And today I can say that they were not real Christians; they were nominal Christians.
Interesting.
But at the end, for me, they were Christians. You know, this is what I know. This is what I grew up with. So I I worked so well with that, so I felt that maybe I got 3 Christians in 3 months. That's an easy job. I think my next step should be the Pope of Egypt. So the Pope of the Coptic Church. Why not? He's not harder than Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Khalifa of Islam, who was really a very infidel and he came to God. So for me, to Allah, this is not a hard job. But I need to study. I need to be realistic. So to study, I started to attend Islamic apologetic lectures and polemics. And here, the story starts to be more interesting actually, because I was shocked in these meetings. In the beginning, I liked it. I was happy with what I learned. But after a while, I started to feel like that these people speak 80% about Christians and 20% about Christianity. 80%. Look for Christians. Look how they look. Look for the women with their hair. Look for how they talk. Look for they are unclean. They are these stuff. But at the end, 20% only about Christianity. And this 20% was, for me, another problem, because I used to call it too obvious to be true. Too obvious to be true. For example, when you tell me, you know what Jesus said, for example, my Father is greater than I. This is a big verse, but definitely Christians have comment on that. Christians would have an answer or have something to say about it. But they never mention that. They always mention that, oh, but they have bad answers and they don't have an answer, actually. They don't have real answers on our questions. This is what they say, that Christians have no real answers. But they never discuss it. So I went to one of the imams after the prayer and after one of the lectures, and I told him, may I ask you a question? We have a lot of intelligent people in Christianity. There are professors, there are engineers, doctors, and in Egypt, actually, many Christians are having very good jobs. So, don't you think that they have opinion about these verses, or why don't they become Muslims, for example? And his answer was, I want to ask you a question. I told him what? He told me, who is the most intelligent people on earth? I told him, I do not know. who are the most intelligent people? He said, Japanese. Japanese people are the most intelligent. I said, why? He said, because of technology and they are the best with electronics. And I said, okay, then. He said, at the end, they bow down before a statue. So it's not by intellect, it's by faith. So it has nothing to do with intellect. I told him, okay, but actually I didn't buy this answer. It was for me like not a real answer. And I felt like I'm wasting my time. I'm just gaining hatred for how Christians are stupid because they don't mind their own book in the right way. And I felt like I'm getting deceived here by way or another, because definitely they have answers. Christians, definitely they have at least comments. Otherwise, they are very stupid, I'm sorry to say.
Right.
Because the verse is very clear. For example, this is eternal life, that they may know you only, the Father and God, Jesus Christ, you may have sent. So it's very clear verse, right? If it means what the Muslim says. So, for me, I was definite that they have another understanding. So I left them and I started to say, I will search myself for a Bible. I need to find a Bible. And if I found a Bible, I will study it myself and get Christians to be Muslims, and that's easy. But the problem, how I find a Bible, because I used to have some beard, I used to have no mustache. I was afraid, I looked so Salafi, and I was afraid to go to a library, to a Christian library,
Sure.
and ask for a Bible. You know, they will think that I'm going to bomb the library. So I was afraid
Right.
of that.
Right.
So I didn't succeed. So I started to ask among Christians, and here is a very important point, John, that they are Christians were so afraid to speak to me. Nobody told me who is really Jesus Christ.
Mm.
Christians were so afraid, and we need to learn to be bold. We need to
Wow.
learn to stand bold for our faith.
Mm.
Everyone was just afraid and avoiding me. Until one guy accepted to give me a Bible online. And I opened the Gospel of John. And in the beginning, it was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And I felt that I understood nothing. What does this mean? This is so philosophical. I was expecting a Quranic Bible, you know, something like the Quran. You have to do this and do that, and something like that, you know. When I did not find it, and I started to go inside a little bit in the gospel, and I found that Jesus went, Jesus came down. Where is God? Why do you don't speak about God? Yeah, but Jesus is God. Yeah, but I don't see any divine way of talking here, you know? It's very simple. So very philosophical in the beginning, very simple in some stories inside that I don't understand. And I needed someone to summarize this for me, you know? I needed someone to tell me, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, this is Christianity. And accordingly, I started to search on internet, and I was not able to find that because it was not that popular, this arguments between Christians and Muslims. There were debates for sure, but all the debates is for Ahmed Didat. And I didn't watch in the beginning Josh McDowell debate. I watched the others.
Oh, why?
Because actually it was not popular because remember, I get this from Muslim websites.
Of
and
course.
This debate is not popular, you know, there.
Of course not.
Yes. Yep. Josh and Anis, these two are not popular there. Anis sure was not popular also. So I started to feel like it's very easy to defeat Christians, you know, just do like Ahmed Didat. I need someone to summarize the faith to me, not to say Christians. So I decided that I will surf on the internet until one day, and that's the moment, I got on the time of dial-up, there used to be advertising box, you know, jumping and coming on and so on. So a box pumped to my laptop screen, my PC screen, and it was written on it, "Do you love Allah?" And I said, "Yes, I love Allah for sure. I'm a Muslim who loves Allah." So I clicked it, and it was a Christian website. It was a very special Christian website. Very simple, getting from story from Adam till Jesus Christ in a very magnificent way, in a very simple way. And at the same time, you can see the line of God behind the story, so much connected, so much related, so much deep. For a moment after I read the whole website, everything in the website I read, because it was so interesting. And I said, "Oh, this is wow." But wait a minute. How could I like it? I'm a Muslim. I am a Salafi Muslim, not a normal Salafi, not as a normal Muslim. I should not like that. And for the first time, I started to look at my library that was full and packed with Muslim books, and to look at the website, and look back here and back there, back here and back there. And suddenly I said to myself, for the first time in my life, maybe we are wrong.
Wow.
This was something very hard to say. It's very hard for a Salafi to say that. And I started to say, no, maybe this is wrong. I need to read the Quran. I opened the Quran, I started to read, and I started to see it with very new eyes as I'm reading it for the first time. Oh my God, how I believe that, how I relate this, how Mary is the sister of Aaron, and at the same time, the daughter of Imran, but she is the mother of Jesus. Wow. I'm lost, you know? I'm lost in the details. And actually, I started to ask myself a deeper question. Who said that God exists? I have never asked myself this question, Shan. I don't know. It was for me a surprise. And like, I don't have enough evidence except the Quran. But what if the Quran is wrong? What if the Quran is not the only true book? So, in a while, in a very short while, I became an atheist.
Okay, so I got to jump in here for a second. Your thinking was not, if Islam is false, maybe Christianity is true. But if Islam is false, all of religion, at least monotheistic religions, are false. That was your thinking,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes, all religions are false because Islam is false. Okay. You know what else could be true? Islam is false.
That makes sense. There's a lot of folks that are Mormons who will, rather than coming to Christianity and think, well, maybe that's wrong, they'll go to agnosticism or atheism. That's a common thing. You feel burned. You've probably felt deceived, and so you didn't want to get burned and deceived again. So tell us about what it was. How long were you an atheist? How did this affect you? And then ultimately, well, let's start there. How long were you an atheist, and what was it like to live as an atheist?
I stayed around 6 months of being atheist, not for a long time. Okay. But I did everything wrong in this in this very short period. Everything wrong. I was looking as a Salafi in the morning, in the 5 prayers, but after the last prayer, I am free to do whatever I want. I was free to do everything wrong, and this was many people, because how I look, even if I cut my beard a little bit, and which was very weird thing for my surroundings. And why you are doing that? I said, security has some issues with me. I need to be careful these days. But actually, it's not security. It was that I want to be an atheist. I want to practice more atheism and freedom from this God. I don't have any God anymore. So I want to enjoy life. But at the same time, I'm so afraid to say to people that I become an atheist because they will kill me. So I need to keep the balance.
I'm sorry to cut you off. So that's a very big shift. Now you're afraid of dying in a way that you weren't afraid before. So taking God away, in this sense, your reasoning was there's no life after death. There's hence no accountability, no heaven or hell. So I want to live this life for pleasure for the moment. So I don't want somebody to kill me while I've still got breath and can enjoy myself. Is that a fair encapsulation?
Exactly. I want to enjoy life. I don't trust that I will have after death. And I did everything I wanted, everything I dreamed of, to the extent that I started to feel like, is that everything? Is that everything? Because I can do whatever I want. I can hide. I can pretend. I can lie. And then is it true that this is all what we have? All what's in it? You know, this is naive. And I started to feel like I am wary of pleasure, that it's too much pleasure, too much, to the extent that you are never satisfied, but actually you have different feeling. You get bored, especially if you still have inside you this feeling of what's the proof? What will be there? I mean, I'm still a seeker. I still want to find the truth, find an answer. So I started to move from being atheist to start to feel like, who knows? Even atheism is not enough, especially when I started to try to be an intellect, and I tried to back myself up with some arguments for atheism. This was so awful, because I started to feel like we are dancing for our DNA. No, we are. For example, I started to feel like one of the major things, I started to feel that I still want life to be fair with me. Based on what I want life to be fair if I'm atheist? There is no fairness, supposedly. There is nothing. Fair is unfair. good is non-good. Everything is the same, so it doesn't matter. But actually, it mattered. It mattered a lot. It mattered for me that after I do whatever I want to do, then what? Then what? Then I will die, and that's it. And that's very empty. And I want to believe. Actually, I like this book where it says, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I really need a lot of faith to be an atheist because I want to believe that nothing created everything. And then they start to analyze it and say, no, the rains dropped down and it became a mono cell. And what you talk about? What you talk about? This is still this will not answer the question. As I always say, atheism for me, the main problem with it, that it doesn't give you an alternative. It takes you away from everything. But then what is the alternative? Then what? Then what? Okay, I'm with you. I'm atheist. Huh? Let's do? Oh, nothing. Enjoy. Even joy. Look for this. Even joy. Let's enjoy. Why? Why? Because if there is no negative, there is no positive. If there is no evil, there is no good. So why enjoy? Why I call joy a joy? It's not a joy. Maybe it's pain. But I don't realize it. I mean, it's very naive. There is no intellectual base for that. And we can go in details for many hours talking about this. Because it has nothing. But I became more agnostic and I started to say, I don't know. I actually do not know. It's easier for me to be ignorant than to be an atheist, actually. But then still, after a while, I felt like when I say I do not know, then the problem that I do not know, so I cannot take a decision because of lack of knowledge, or I do not know because I cannot know. That's a big question.
Sure.
And I started to feel like, or to see that if there is a God, then there is a possibility of knowledge to know him, because there is a problem with decision-making skills, not a problem with, in agnosticism, the problem is decision-making skills, not the lack of knowledge. Because in any mean, by any mean, you will lean towards one of the scale balance, one of the sides of the scale. You should lean towards one of them. You will be more into, actually, we don't know, but most probably there is no God. Or
Sure.
I know that there is a God, maybe, but I don't know. But you still lean towards, even with 0.1%. This means that you lean towards something. And it's impossible for me, logically, to keep the balance for a long time. It's impossible.
That makes sense. So you shift from Islam to atheism, and then agnosticism. Now you move towards Christianity. Now that's not the end of the journey. There's going to be some things that surprise people come back to. But tell us why you moved towards Christianity, but then at this stage in your life actually become disillusioned with it.
Yes, I moved from agnosticism after a while of being agnostic, and I started to take a decision that there is a God, as I said. I leaned towards it, so I became more like a deist, that there is a God, but maybe he left us, or maybe we are abandoned, or maybe he's not a person. I don't know, but there is something control us. And I started to live with that for a while, for around another 6 months. Around that time, but it was awful experience, because even with believing that there is a God, you feel, without having this God as a person, you feel that you speak to the air all the time, because there is no response. Speak to the wall. You are speaking to the hand. So no response. No one is feeding back with anything, no communication. And beside being leading the prayer in the mosque, I was a learning and development consultant. This was my job, actually, where I get my salary. So I was teaching soft skills. I teach leadership, communication, customer service, sales, So I asked myself a simple question after being so tired of a lot of pressure and a lot of problems that I needed God in it. I needed someone to help me. So I got this question to my head, which says simply, if I am a communication skills trainer, why God cannot be a communication skill trainee, at least?
It's a fair question.
Right? He should have something. I teach it, and I'm a human. I'm limited, and I teach human communication skills. Why God cannot be that knowledgeable about communication? You should have communication in return, right?
Agreed.
So why he is not communicating, or is communicating in a way that I don't understand? Also, I will share something with you that I didn't share before in any of my interviews. I was tired one day and I decided to kill myself.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yes. I was tired, I was overwhelmed, and I had some tablets for my blood veins that narrow the blood veins, and I took all of it. And I said, let's die.
Wow.
And I said, I'm tired, and I was afraid to die, but now I don't care because I'm tired, because I'm alone. But the problem that the medicine that I've taken is very strong and painful.
Mm-hmm.
It narrow your blood vessels. So imagine my blood vessels started to appear on my head and on my face. It was so bad. I mean, it's so painful. You feel that something is squeezing you from inside. It's very painful. And I started to cry for the first time in my life. And I started to say, God, if you are there, get me out of this. And I will be a real seeker. I will search for you. This time I will search for you. For real. If you get me out of that. I slept or fainted actually, and I woke up like nothing has happened to me. Like nothing has happened.
Wow.
Like I did not take this medicine at all. So I found that I have no option except bowing down, getting down on my knees, crying out for God, telling him, look, I'm trying to search for you, but you are so big for me to find you. And I'm so small for you to find me. So please do something and find me. In that night, I went to sleep and I saw in my dreams that I'm running in a very long road, a lot of tree branches full of thorns chasing me, want to kill me. And at the end of the road, there is a house with a man standing there. I shouted, help me, do something. He stretched his hand, put it on my shoulder, and brought me before him. And I found once I stood before him that he is Jesus Christ. I looked, and he looked deep in my eyes, and he said, it's your time to follow me. I woke up of my dreams, and I said, this is most probably hallucinations, because I'm busy with the idea and and I'm very occupied with the movies that I watch. This is not real. But in the next night, I got the same dream with the same details. So I walked out this time and I started to say, look, this is not a joke. I looked at heaven and he said to him, please, if you are really Jesus Christ, come to me one more time with the same details. Otherwise, I will not think of you again. Imagine what? He came. And this time, he looked deep in my eyes and he said, didn't I tell you it's your time to follow me?
Wow.
This additional statement, didn't I tell you, was my proof that he was listening. This was my proof that when I said to him, if you are Jesus Christ, come to me one more time. This was my proof. And I was full of tears. I was not able to take it. He's full of love. This is not the God I know. The God I know, if I challenged him, he will say, oh, go to hell. Don't waste my time. You're stupid. But this Jesus is different. He's full of love. And he just understands you the way you are. So I woke up not as a Christian, but as a believer in Jesus. This Jesus I want to believe in, or at least a seeker of who Jesus is. I want to know two questions, actually. Who is Jesus and why me?
Okay.
This was getting me crazy. Why me? why not any other Christian, not any other person? And it took me some time to get to know that. I got connected through Tal Talk with one of the pastors. He was apologist, by the way. And this was the first Christian apologist I meet ever. And he started to, I talked to him and he answered and he asked to meet me. And he listened to my story the way you listen now. And he told me something that was very wise. This was the first response I get in my life from an apologist. And actually, I learned a lot from this response. After I told him, so why me? He told me, Thomas, when you asked God to come to you again, did he come? I said, yeah, he came. He said, okay, then ask him why me. He will answer. This is a very personal relationship. Don't make me interfere in it. This was a very wise answer. For the first time, I listened the word personal relationship. This is a personal relationship between you and God. Have it like this. Keep it like this. I started to meet him for several weeks, and I didn't know that I was getting discipled, but I was getting discipled.
Right.
He was discipling me, and it didn't take a few weeks. It took actually 3 years. All what I do, that I study Islam and Christianity. Why Islam? Because simply this is the only worldview I have in my head for God.
Sure.
I don't have any other image for God. So it took me 3 years just studying Islam and Christianity until I told him I want to get baptized. And I want to become a Christian. And he actually was not welcoming the idea so fast. He was asking me to wait. But I insisted, and I found my way to get baptized. And this was not wise. I was not ready, according to him. But and also I didn't mention these details before, but I insisted to get baptized so fast. And I got baptized, and I fall very fast after that in what we call the doubt after faith, or the being skeptic after faith. After I came to faith, I started to ask myself, did I do the right step? Is it the right thing? Maybe there are other religions that we never heard of is right also. And also, let me say something very important. The church pressured me a lot. I was casted out of many churches, by the way. Many churches were afraid of my questions because I was a guy who asked a lot. And at the same time, I was the guy with many problems because I came from this Muslim background with a Salafi background. So they were afraid of my family.
Sure.
So they don't want me to be involved in the church. So it was a double pressure, actually. And it was hard for me to continue. But with this pressure, I started to feel more skeptic, and Christians are not welcoming me for real. And maybe there is something else. I love Jesus, but maybe there's something else still. And this brought me to stress a little bit. And when I stressed, I decided to do some breathing exercises that I learned. Then I tried to find a group of breathing exercises. And instead of the breathing exercises group, I found a meditation group.
Now, let me stop for a second before you jump into this. A couple pieces you had described how in some of the Christian experience you had, it felt so ritualistic that it kind of felt like Islam over again, and that it really wasn't a different faith. That was such an important point. But you also describe how your doubts came from intellectual questions you had, but also the way Christians were treating you or not treating you relationally created some doubt. So I don't want people to miss that it was both of those. It was asking questions, but also Christians maybe not living as we're supposed to, loving people, inviting questions. And so you go into these breathing exercises, and now you're shifting from Christianity to this new age worldview. Pick up the story.
I started to find this meditation group, and I liked it so much because it was a free group for everyone, and it's made by Indians. So I felt like, oh my God, this is the roots of meditation. They are the best in meditation. And I started to go to their house. I do meditation with them, but I found out that it's more than meditation, because after the class, you should share experiences. We feel things and we share it. We hear sounds and we share about it. We hear voices. And when you ask them, what are these voices? They say, these are the masters. And this made me curious. I'm a curious guy, and I started to feel like, I want to know, what are these people? Maybe they have the truth too. So I started to attend regularly, and I started to sit after the session with them to eat and to have some socialization. And I was the best. Like, I follow the instructions. Do meditation. I do meditation. Do meditation every day. I keep it every day. I'm a Salafi, you know. It's easy for me to keep Christians. So I have to try to increase the time of meditation. I increased the time of my meditation from 1 minute to 7 hours. To 7 hours sitting doing meditation. Can you imagine that? I was so dedicated to learn.
Wow.
7 hours doing in the nothing world, going into the deep meditation, reading their books, until they told me. I started to ask them a lot of questions. And what is good about them, that they like to answer. They like questions and they like to answer questions. So I started to go with these questions and with these answers. And I like the answers because they have their way. They make you more curious. They have this style that make you more curious. And this is actually New Age style. And that's why many people follow New Age, because it makes you curious. Ask me any question. I can make you more curious. Like, for example, what's the meaning of life? I can answer you in a way that makes you so curious. For example, the meaning of life is what you really mean and what you really understand when you go deep in your personal experience and feel it and become one with it. Actually, what I said now, Chan, is nothing. If you analyze it, this is nothing.
I was listening.
But it makes you like, wow, this guy is wise. But actually, this is the New Age style. People don't want to believe that, but I really went into that, and this is how they do it. I became so good in that, and I liked it. I was so curious. I learned how to do it. Until they said, you should meet the big boss. Like, you should meet the guru, the big guru. And I met the big guru. It was a movement called PSSM, Pyramid Spiritual Society Movement. And it was, they believe in the energy of pyramids. And they had a big boss called Bahara Marish Patriji. He passed away 2 years ago. And he's very well known in India, in many places in India. And he met me and he said, I remember his words also. He said, you are an intelligent guy and we want you with us. I like, because meditation gives you peace in a way. It's fake peace, but in the beginning you feel it peaceful. I will tell you why it's fake after a few moments. But you feel nice, you feel calm, you feel that you don't care about problems anymore. Like, you can deal with everything. And I felt that, and this encouraged you to feel that you are doing the right thing, you know. So I walked forward, and until they decided that I should go to India. You are very special, and they started to believe that I am the reincarnation of someone called Vemana, and they they sent me to India to attend a very big conference for meditation called Dhyana Mahachakram, the very universal conference for meditation worldwide. I went there. I was very affected by them, talking like them, speaking like them. Even I got the Indian accent in my talk. This was very hard for me. But I was like that. I was like imitating them and everything. This is what I want to say. I became a copy of them until after I went there, people started to see dreams about me as a guru. They announced me as a guru, as a teacher. And once I went down the stage after my first speech, I found a group of people bowing down before me. And this was shocking for me, Shan. This was normal there. It's a matter of respect, not worship. But for me, still was very shocking because I didn't grow up like that, and I believe that bowing should be only for God. You know, I cannot ever take this place. And there, it was kind of something giving me my mind back. You know, I get my mind back. You know, and I start to feel like what I'm doing. What I am doing. People bowing down for me. Do I believe that? Did I believe myself? I know that this is all just not real, but I like the flow. I like the flow. Wow. I started to think also that there is something demonic in it because you feel demonic stuff in this. I saw people healing people. I saw people elevating. I saw strange things. I saw very weird things from the monks there. And you don't feel comfortable with it. You know, you don't have peace when you see it. You feel uncomfortable and you feel like, oh my God, there is something wrong here. And the second thing that I felt that God is answering my question about something in Islam. I know this is suddenly unrelated, but it's related. Because in Islam, I used to ask myself, how many people followed Muhammad? How many people followed Muhammad? You know, this was very strange for me. But actually, I saw in India, in this Dhyana Mahachakram, 80,000 people following Maharamarish Patriji. 80,000. Can you imagine? And they're very simple people, just believe what people say to them because they want to get healed or they want to get glory or they want to feel nice. So I decided that only Jesus was different for me. So I decided something strange. I decided that I will go back to Egypt and I will worship Jesus alone. And as if I'm the only one who worshiped Jesus. And I came, and to make the long story short, because this will take another time, I was able to introduce the faith to my wife, Nancy, who was not my wife at that time. And I invited her to faith, and she came to faith. But the problem that after she got baptized and we got married, and I was casted out of my family because I got married to someone out of our group, we lived together, and Nancy started to feel like, why you are not ritual? Why you don't want to go to church and do things? And for me, it was like, oh, not again. I did a lot of rituals in my life, you know. I'm tired of that. So she brought a friend, and she told me, Thomas, what's your problem? What's your problem with your faith? Why you are not practicing? I told her because I believe 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe that faith is not rituals. I believe that it's a relationship. I believe that we should be focused on Jesus Christ alone. I believe that the Bible is our only script that we should be following. And I said, that she told me, okay, so you are evangelical. I told her, no, I'm Christian. She said, yeah, you are evangelical Christian. I told her, I don't know that. And she took me to the church for the first time, to another church, where I felt welcomed and I felt not alone, where I felt everyone is praying the same way I pray, freely, without rules, without limits and very open to God, and everyone is blessing the other. And I felt like I found myself. On that day, I decided to give my life to Jesus 100%, not 99, not 99.5, 100%. I want to live for Jesus Christ, not only to die for him.
So one of the things you walk through in your book, we won't do this here, is you lay out a case for the Bible being reliable. And one of the things I thought was fascinating is when you compared reading the New Testament for the first time in the Gospels, how different it was from the Quran. Like some of these sayings were kind of divorced from context. There's no details given in the Quran, these spiritual sayings. In the Bible, we're told the people and the place and the time and details we can check out that are actually confirmed when we check them out. You walk through that. You walk through one of the big challenges that you have for the Quran, Surah 4, that denies that Jesus died on the cross. And you walk through the historical record that this is just really, in a sense, overwhelming from within the scriptures, without the scriptures, Jewish sources, Roman sources, cannot deny that Jesus died, yet the Quran comes 6 centuries later and denies that. So I appreciate a lot of the apologetic material I want folks to know is in your book. We're not going to go into. But do you recall a moment where you really had an experience of grace? Is this when you went to the church? Because it'd be easier for people to watch this to say, well, I was committed to this faith, I was committed to that faith, and now I'm just committed to the Christian faith. But at the root of the Christian faith is a recognition that one is a sinner and needs God's grace and can't earn it. Given that you came from such a background of striving, help us understand when you got God's grace and what that meant to you.
First of all, that's an amazing question. And I found after going through all these worldviews, Shan, that there are something very common between worldviews, something very common between all worldviews except Christianity. It's partially in Christianity, but not in the same way. What is very common, that simply all religions ask you to worship in a way or another. Worship, call it meditation, call it yoga, call it bowing down, call it mantra, call it whatever, but it's worship, a kind of worship. And then they say this worship will make you righteous in a way or another. Call it righteous, call it good, call it faithful, call it religious, call it whatever, but it will make you righteous. So you worship and then you become righteous. And when you become righteous, you will get your reward. And this reward is salvation, or call it paradise, call it nirvana, call it moksha, call it, regardless, whatever you call it, different religions. But in Christianity, and this exists supposedly in all religions, these three, but in Christianity, I found something very unique and very different. I found that Christianity is not asking me to worship to get salvation, to be righteous and get salvation. I found that Christianity is exactly the same three, but the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. Christianity is saying you get salvation. You get salvation first, and it's by grace, and it's for free.
Amen.
And you cannot get it yourself. You cannot work it yourself. You cannot become righteous yourself. You need salvation. And when you get salvation, you will become righteous. By God's grace, again. So you get salvation for free by Jesus Christ dying on the cross and resurrecting. You become righteous in Jesus Christ who died on the cross and resurrected. And accordingly, you get the Holy Spirit that gives you the power to worship. So, you will not worship to get saved. No, you are saved, so you worship. You are not fasting to get saved. You are saved, so you fast. And so on. It's exactly the opposite. And I found that this really mattered. This really mattered. That I need to get grace first. I need to be saved first, so I become righteous. I cannot make myself righteous. Ask any person, can you make yourself righteous? Even atheists. Can you make yourself, can you be sure that you do no mistakes? You do no sins at all? No, you cannot. Nobody can keep himself from being sinner. No one can keep himself from doing the wrong things. No one keep himself from being alienated. And this is more important. This existential problem of meaning, why I exist, how should I be living my life, where I'm going to. These existential questions will keep fighting, will keep chasing you. And these questions needs one answer. With all love to the amazing James Sire in his books and his amazing contribution on worldviews, there is, in my opinion, there is one answer that can sum up all these answers. It's salvation. You need to be saved. And accordingly, I am saved, so I am God's image, and Jesus is in me. I am saved, so I live in Jesus' image, and this is how I behave. I'm saved, and so on. I'm saved, so I will be with Jesus after that. I am saved, and that's the most important. And accordingly, I'm righteous before God's eye. I am respected before God's eye. I am welcome before God's eye. And God is standing for us. God is standing for us. And accordingly, I'm enjoying my worship. I'm not worshiping fear anymore. I used to cry in my prayers. Nobody can imagine how much I cried in my prayers, asking God and hearing the stories of Muhammad companions, how they used to pray as slaves. You know that? That's what they teach us, that they used to pray like slaves, and they put on, Umar ibn Khattab used to put on the clothes of slave and the chains in his neck to show himself as a slave when he's standing before God, to tell him, I am your slave, I am nothing, just forgive me. And I'm standing with confidence, and I see Paul saying, in confidence we enter to the holiness. What's the difference? There is a big difference here. In confidence I can enter with the blood of Jesus Christ to the holiness of God. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he says, I am afraid if my right leg is inside heaven and the other is outside, I cannot trust God's deceivement. What? In meditation, they tell you the highest you can reach is meditation. And actually there is no meaning. Meditation is the meaning. This is what the Gurus say. Really. In atheism, they say actually there is no meaning. Don't bother yourself with all of that. In agnosticism, they say, no, we do not know if there is a meaning or not, because we do not know what do you mean by that. And in deism, they say, oh, we cannot say that there is a definite meaning, actually, but there is some kind of meaning that is earthly. We are not sure of what will happen after. No worldview can give the answer except Jesus Christ, who said, come to me because I am the light, who said, come to me, I'm the living water, who said, I am the truth, the way, and the life, who said everything that nobody dared to claim. And he did it in front of everyone. Jesus didn't die on a cave in the mountain, hiding from people, and didn't resurrect in front of the mirror, alone, with nobody seeing him. No, he did both in front of people, and people were witnessing. Nothing can confront that, my dear brother.
This shift in your life, especially there's a component that we left out at the beginning. I read to my wife last night when I was reading your book that you and some of your fellow Salafi kind of followers would carry around like a candle, that if you, or a lighter, that if you sinned, you would burn your hand to just remind yourself what hell was like, so you would stop sinning. That kind of slavery to fear, to sin, is so different than what grace brings and transforms from the inside out. So then we can begin to be the kind of people God desires us to be. So the desire to not to sin has a completely different motivation. I love how that comes out in your story. Now I've got a couple more questions about your story. What did this cost you? Did you tell your family? Did you stay in Egypt? What happened? How did you eventually, you and your wife, come out and start to proclaim to the world, as you do now in your book, that you're a Christian?
Actually, it was hard to continue in Egypt because after we became alone in our house, we became like a small church. Everyone was coming to us talking about religion. Everyone was confessing faith, having discussions and so on. And this made us a lot of problems that we were in need to leave. And we left by God's grace in safely to another country. And I decided after I left, I found out that Nancy's family knew about it. My family doubted, and the police knows about it. So I said to Nancy, "Who else we care about? Let's put this on Facebook. Let's announce our faith. I'm tired. I want to come to the light. I didn't travel to stay hiding." And I put on Facebook, "I witness that there is no God except the Lord Jesus Christ, and I worship Him." And I received within a week, 300 or 2 weeks, I received 359 direct death threats.
Wow.
Around that number, yes. And people were so strange, my dear brother, in talking about killing me. They were so innovative. I don't know why. They were so innovative. A guy called me, I will never forget this guy. A guy told to me, "I will not kill you. I want to rob your hand and get your wife and sleep with her and then torture her and then cut her into pieces and give her to dogs.
Jeez.
And you are watching while you are watching." I told him, "Oh my God, how you thought of that?" How you thought of that? How you get such an idea? People are full of hatred towards conversion and towards feeling that they are wrong. That's their problem. They are afraid to feel wrong. They are afraid to feel like, "Oh my God, if this guy converted, maybe Islam is wrong, so I am wrong." So this costed me that I do not connect with my family anymore. I do not connect with my friends anymore. Most of the people rejected me in Egypt, the people I used to know, I mean, or insulted me or threatening me, so it cost me a lot. However, I did not lose anything because I got my satisfaction in Jesus Christ. This is very important.
Amen.
I saw the presence of the Lord in every step in my life. I saw it. I witnessed for it, and I'm here to witness about that. Jesus was there with me. I never, ever. I have billion of stories. We need billion of episodes to cover what God's grace happened and what happened with me during this journey. So we flee, and we struggled a little bit in the beginning, as everyone, as some people are escaping from their country. It's not easy in the beginning, and it took me some time. But as I said, I witnessed from the first week about that, and then I decided to try to work and serve the Lord. But then God called me to be dedicated for ministry, and it has its own story that I mention maybe in the book, and it's a long story that made me accepting that I will become servant for the Lord. This is what I will do, I will serve the Lord. And accordingly, I started to search for study because I love to study. All Salafi people like to study, by the way. I love to study, and or most of them. And it was not easy to find the right study, and in my circumstances and in the country where I am, until I studied some apologetics in some apologetic academy. Then, because I was a big fan of apologetics and studying different religions and worldviews, then I found a very interesting friend telling me about another friend who was a friend of his, and his name is Joshua Lingle, and I really care to mention his name, and I think he is a common friend also.
Yep.
And this is how we got to know each other. So Joshua is very special. He is the president of I2 Ministries and the dean of MMW, Mission Muslim World University, where he got in contact with me and I found really welcoming. And like, you find your place, man. He was like, you are in the right place. Mission
Good.
Muslim World University. This is you,
Good.
Thomas. And I joined the study. It's a pathway of masters, and I did the pathway. And I was honored that you lectured to me in this school. And it's an amazing intensive program of 40 doctors in 30 different courses completed together, or squeezed together in intensive 9 courses. And now, after you join that, you go to God's Bible School, and then you continue your master's thesis. I'm very honored that I did my thesis on the Trinity.
Yes, you did.
And it's about to be also a book that will come out soon after this one, after my testimony. It will be The Trinity Revealed. I am answering the book of Rahmatullah Hindi, which is The Truth Revealed. Rahmatullah is the godfather for Ahmad Didat and Zakir Naik and all the Muslim apologists. I am answering his chapter on the Trinity.
I didn't know he was the godfather of Didat, which takes us back to that debate he had with my father, early 80s, almost about 40 years ago that was. Well, let's come back and revisit and discuss that book down the road. For now, I want people to pick up your book that is coming out called It Is Your Time to Follow Me. And we kind of walked through some of the details in this book. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of insights. There's a lot of apologetic content that we didn't even get to. So I hope people pick it up just to support you and to get your story out there. But here's my last question, Thomas. You feared death when you're a Muslim. I'm sorry, you didn't fear death when you're a Muslim. You wanted to die. You feared God more because of your understanding that God could ultimately determine your eternal fate. You became an atheist and you feared death because this life from that perspective is all that there is. Given that there's death threats on your life, do you fear death now?
I'm welcoming death, actually, but not in the sense of Islam. I'm welcoming to be with Jesus Christ. However, I have one condition for anyone who wants to kill me. Please read the Bible before you kill me and look at the cross and read why Jesus has crucified and resurrected. And then you are welcome to do whatever you want. But read his story because he deserves to be read, actually.
Thomas, that is a mic drop moment for us to end on. I'm honored to have you on. Love your story. You have blessed me powerfully. I want you to know that. And by the way, I did my dissertation, which I had that chance to lecture on when we met a few months ago. And one of my favorite apostles, if not my favorite apostle, is Thomas. He gets a bad rep as being called a doubter. He's not a doubter. He said, give me evidence. I will not believe unless you can show me the hands and show me the wounds. I'm that way. Give me the evidence. Give me the proof. And you are that way. So I think your name is very prophetic that you are living out in many ways the example of the Apostle Thomas. We will do this again. It's been great to make your acquaintance. Folks who are watching here, make sure you hit subscribe. We want to highlight remarkable stories like this as we can. We're going to have Thomas back down the road to talk about his case and defense for the Trinity, which I'm already looking forward to. If you've thought about studying apologetics, you heard today how valuable and important apologetics is. Whatever your journey is, deism, atheism, agnosticism, New Age, Islam, we've talked about it all, and apologetics is like a golden thread that goes through that. We'd love to have you come study here with us at Biola, fully distanced. In fact, we've had some people from Egypt and other parts of the Middle East and around the world be a part of our program. Thomas, it was an honor. I'm really looking forward to doing it again. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.